Oh, Path of Exile 2, you glorious, overhyped loot piñata. Remember when the early access trailer dropped, and every ARPG fan collectively lost their minds, convinced this was finally the second coming of Diablo 2? According to the Church of Steam charts, Path of Exile 2 has shed over 80% of its player base in just 3 months. That's not a decline, that's a black diamond ski slope of abandonment. You log in now, and hear crickets. And here's the real kicker. Even Diablo 4, the game everyone flamed as a mobile store with a dungeon problem, had better player retention. Let that sink in. The game that got ratioed by its own Reddit community on launch day managed to keep more of its players hanging around than Path of Exile 2, the supposed torchbearer of hardcore ARPGs. PoE always had a cycle. Hype, login floods, servers wheeze like a broken air pump, and then attrition. But losing 75% of your players in 2 months, that's not league fatigue, that's a mass exodus. Let's talk numbers for a second. The Dawn of the Hunt update in April 2025 peaked at a juicy 238,000 concurrent players. Not bad, right? Except 2 weeks later, you could probably fit all the remaining players in a Discord server and still have room for a bot that plays elevator music. The Steam chart since then? A sad downward trend, like watching a campfire slowly die while Zana reads you patch notes. And the Reddit threads? Oh baby, they're hot. Not with praise, but with titles like, "Why I uninstalled PoE 2 and started gardening instead." PSA, your stash tabs are now NFTs. My Sentinel AI has more personality than the questline. Look, PoE 2 is still technically in early access. There's time, maybe they'll turn it around. Maybe the next league will be called Please Come Back and feature free microtransactions, actual QA, and a mechanic that isn't just hit the glowing thing and die instantly. But for now, the only thing more volatile than the economy and Rayclast is the player count. Stay strong, Exiles. Or don't. Most already didn't. Path of Exile 2 came in hot, guns blazing, promising to be the messiah of ARPGs. And for a minute there, it almost felt like it might deliver, until the content schedule hit like a wet scroll of wisdom. GGG decided to bless us with leagues in Path of Exile 2, or at least that's what they called them. What we actually got was more like seasonal anxiety. A launch burst so big, it nearly broke Steam charts, followed by a vanishing act, worthy of a mirror of Calandra. The first content drop was hyped as if it would reinvent the genre, and it kinda did, by redefining how fast a player base can evaporate. 2 weeks in, and boom, concurrent players dropped harder than your DPS when you forget to allocate ascendancy points. Below 100,000 players, 2 weeks. That's not a league lifecycle. That's a weekend binge followed by collective uninstall trauma. And yes, GGG tried to course correct with live updates and new mechanics, which basically amounted to, "Hey Exiles, what if we gave you more reasons to log out faster?" They dropped mid-league mini-events with all the excitement of a white rarity flintlock. You'd log in, squint at the patch notes, and ask yourself, "Wait, is that it?" Then promptly go back to watching YouTube guides about builds you'll never play, because they'll be nerfed by next patch anyway. The pacing? Imagine running a marathon of Exile. But every water station just offers salt. GGG stretched out leagues like they're taffy at a carnival booth, except no one's having fun and everyone's queuing for refunds instead of rides. Meanwhile, the hype cycle kept spinning. Path of Exile 2 trailers, dev promises, cinematic storylines, but in-game, you're still beating up the same 10 mobs in slightly shinier environments, wondering if the next league will actually be a league, or just another 3-month waiting room for maybe content. Path of Exile 2 didn't just stumble in the league department. It tripped, fell down a staircase, and got stuck in an instance crash loop. And players? They're already writing "See you next league" in their hideout walls, right above the stash tab they paid $20 for. If you dare wander into the Path of Exile forums or subreddit right now, I hope you brought popcorn, a seatbelt, and maybe a stress ball, because holy early access, the community is in peak ARPG meltdown mode. It's not just spicy, it's ghost pepper level sarcasm, mixed with the kind of disappointment usually reserved for sequels to your favorite childhood movies. The mood? Somewhere between "we still love this game" and "GGG blink twice if you are still alive." Longtime fans, the kind who can tell you what version Molten Strike peaked in, are now posting thread titles like "GGG's sudden lack of communication," Did they lose their keyboards? These forums are full of respectful feedback, and yet the silence remains. It's starting to feel like GGG doesn't value its community anymore. Over on Reddit, the vibe is like an intervention wrapped in posts. Memes compare PoE's current state to a neglected relationship, where you keep coming back to your ex every 3 months, only to remember why you left them a week later when they forget your birthday and steal your support gems. And GGG? Oh, they're busy, very busy. Not fixing league mechanics or addressing stealth nerfs, of course. No, they're hard at work polishing the sports card that is Path of Exile 2, while Path of Exile 1, the faithful old sedan that's carried the entire ARPG genre on its rusted-out frame, is left coughing oil in the driveway. It still runs, they say, with duct tape and the tears of legacy players. Even the most loyal veterans, those who've min-maxed since 2013, are now oscillating between concerned citizens and roastmasters general. The forums read like a group therapy session where everyone's trauma is socketed into a 6-link chest plate of betrayal. But here's the kicker. For all the salt, sarcasm, and savage burns, these folks still care. If they didn't, they'd just uninstall and ghost GGG harder than a Harvest rework. Instead, they're writing 800-word rants, crafting PowerPoint presentations on balance issues, and memeing like it's a full-time job. Why? Because nothing hurts quite like watching your favorite game slowly morph into a live service cautionary tale. So yeah, the Path of Exile community might be mad, but it's the kind of mad you get when your best friend starts dating someone toxic again. You're furious, but you're still showing up, still invested, still holding out hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll wake up and realize they're screwing up something special. Until then, we'll be here, sharpening our sarcasm, stockpiling memes, and waiting for GGG to return our calls. Remember when grinding gear games used to talk to us like we were part of the family? Ah yes, the good old days, when dev manifestos dropped like loot explosions, and Reddit AMAs weren't just rare collector's items. Fast forward to 2025, GGG's communication strategy feels like it's being run by a level 1 scion trapped in Twilight Strand, alone, confused, and definitely not responding to messages. The current update cadence? Slower than a cold dot totem build with no cast speed. And community interaction? Basically hardcore SSF mode. Solo, self-found, and absolutely not sharing. Even Chris Wilson, once the unofficial spokesperson of Rayclast, has seemingly taken a vow of digital silence. We still get patch notes and the occasional big reveal stream, but when it comes to day-to-day transparency, GGG's gone full NPC mode. And don't even get us started on the forums. Players pour their hearts out in massive, well-reasoned threads, begging for crumbs of communication, only to be met with the online equivalent of a tumbleweed rolling through Highgate. One user nailed it. Not even an hour a month to reply to the most upvoted threads? Y'all ghosted us harder than Einhar after map completion. And remember Bex? Yeah, that Bex, the legendary community manager who used to inject personality, memes, and actual human vibes into the dev team's online presence. She left and apparently took GGG's entire PR soul with her. Ever since, the vibe's been less indie devs talking to fans and more corporate intern holding the Twitter password hostage. Meanwhile, over at Blizzard, yes, Blizzard of all places, they're at least pretending to engage with their audience. They're doing awkwardly charming campfire chats, where devs try to smile through the pain while reading live comments roasting them. Even Last Epoch's devs are out here, being wholesome and transparent, answering questions, posting dev diaries, maybe even hugging their players through the screen. Comparatively, GGG's player interaction feels like it's being managed by a possessed animate guardian with a broken AI pathing script. Let's not forget the promises. GGG swore up and down that Path of Exile 1 would continue alongside Path of Exile 2. And technically, it is. Just kind of like an NPC left behind in Act 1, languishing in a league so long it qualifies for Ray-classed citizenship. And updates on Path of Exile 2's roadmap? Unless you're decoding hidden glyphs in teaser trailers or casting socketed spell, divination card reading. Good luck finding actual info. It's reached the point where the player base is conjuring conspiracy theories, more elaborate than Cyrus's boss dialogue. Tencent gag order? Secret dev burnout? Chris got lost in his own atlas? We don't know, and that's kind of the problem. If GGG wants to salvage what's left of its once iconic rapport with fans, here's a tip: talk to us. Even a "Hey Exiles, we see you, we're working on it" would feel like a divine blessing at this point. Some memes, some humility, a little acknowledgement of the frustration. It doesn't take much to restore goodwill. Until then, Rayclast feels a bit lonely, not because there aren't players, but because the devs seem to have logged out. In 2025's overcrowded ARPG battlefield, the genre feels less like a noble competition and more like a reality show, where three dysfunctional titans awkwardly trip over each other while pretending everything's fine. Path of Exile 2, the grizzled warlord of complexity, marches in with a 10-year legacy and a skill tree so convoluted it could double as a map of the multiverse. It's the most mechanically rich game in the genre, but lately it's acting like that aging rock band still living off its early hits, brilliant on paper, but struggling to stay relevant in a scene that now expects polish, pace, and actual communication. Path of Exile 2's early access has been marred by inconsistent updates, a steep learning curve that borders on masochism, and a developer vision so uncompromising it's become a meme. Players drop in when major patches hit, then bounce out like they're avoiding commitment. Because who wants to suffer through gear rebalancing and skill reworks while being ghosted by the devs? Diablo 4, on the flip side, stormed onto the stage in a blaze of marketing hype and cinematic flair, polished to a corporate sheen that would make a Silicon Valley investor weep with joy. It launched with massive sales and a promising campaign, but quickly revealed itself as the genre's equivalent of a fast food meal: flashy packaging, empty calories. Blizzard's live service model tried to mimic the ARPG formula, but ended up nerfing fun into oblivion, dropping Season 1 like a tactical nuke on player morale. The overpriced cosmetics, the Battle Pass grind, the always online requirement, it all added up to a game that looked premium but felt hollow. Despite that, D4 manages to hang on to a semi-stable player base, partially thanks to its Steam release and Blizzard's semi-frequent developer live streams. But among seasoned ARPG fans, it's often regarded as the flashy tourist who showed up late to the party and brought expensive chips no one asked for. Then there's Last Epoch, the so-called indie underdog that just walked in, read the room, and started winning hearts by not screwing everything up. Without the billion-dollar budget or decade-long baggage, Last Epoch delivered something shockingly rare in this genre: actual player respect. Its second season, Tombs of the Erased, launched in April 2025, and didn't just make waves, it sparked a tsunami. With over 136,000 concurrent players on Steam during launch, it casually surpassed Path of Exile 2's active numbers for the day, despite having a fraction of the marketing and a much smaller peak history. That moment was a mic drop. Proof that when you build a solid game with clear systems, meaningful updates, and devs who talk to you like humans instead of disappearing into a New Zealand void, players respond. Last Epoch doesn't try to reinvent the ARPG wheel. It just oils it, balances it, and makes sure it doesn't fly off mid-run. It's like watching a freshman absolutely school two tenured professors who forgot that teaching means more than just assigning homework. In short, Path of Exile 2 feels like it's chasing a dream that's outrunning its resources. Diablo 4 is coasting on legacy while desperately pretending it's still cool. And Last Epoch is the one quietly rewriting the rules while the others bicker over who had the better patch notes. Grinding gear games' current strategy, if we can even call it that, feels less like a well-oiled live service roadmap and more like a passive-aggressive breakup letter to its own fanbase. Gone are the days when Chris Wilson would descend from the heavens to bless forum threads with candid patch explanations and roadmap clarity. In 2025, GGG's communication has entered full monastic silence mode, a vow of speak only during ExileCon, punctuated by the occasional league trailer with just enough flash to distract from the utter lack of day-to-day transparency. Community feedback, no matter how detailed or constructive, now gets treated like a magic find, built in a bossing meta, completely ignored. And when they do respond, it's usually days or weeks after the Reddit threads have already exploded and the memes have peaked. Add to that their unwavering commitment to a vision that often translates to, "We know better than you," even if the game's bleeding players, and you've got a cocktail of frustration. Take the infamous loot nerfs of 2022. GGG ninja nerfed drops behind the scenes. Players noticed they were going broke after one map, Raised Hell, and the studio's initial response was a masterclass in gaslighting until they finally walked it back. Fast forward to Path of Exile 2's early access, and it's déjà vu. Progression is deliberately slower. Crafting is still a dice roll wrapped in a prayer, and the devs are doubling down like it's a badge of honor to frustrate people into enlightenment. And don't even get started on the update schedule. Once a proud 13-week metronome of innovation, now it's a game of, how long can we stretch this league before they notice? Settlers League overstayed its welcome like an NPC stuck in dialogue mode, and Path of Exile 2's patches feel more like quarterly apologies than actual updates. Yet, through it all, the monetization remains untouched, pristine, exploitative in the most ethical way possible. Sure, the game is free, but try playing it seriously without premium stash tabs, and you'll find yourself sorting loot like a digital hoarder in denial. GGG sells quality of life, not power, and somehow convinces players to thank them for it. Cosmetics, outrageously overpriced, but dripping with enough FOMO to make Diablo 4's shop look like a charity drive. The infamous Kirax Vault Pass is just the cherry on top, a battle pass system that offers fashion in exchange for your time and your wallet, all while your character looks deliberately hideous in default armor, so you have to fix it. GGG's monetization engine is fueled by goodwill and supporter packs. But let's be honest, if the communication stays dead, the updates keep crawling, and PoE 2 continues down the road of fun equals to suffering. Even the most loyal fashionistas might stop swiping their credit cards for flaming wings and celestial footprints. All right. We've roasted Path of Exile 2 harder than a 6-link tabula wearer in a tier 16 map with no resists. But let's pause the flamethrower for a second and talk about why, despite everything, players just can't quit this game. Seriously, what dark pact did GGG make to keep us all hooked, like loot goblins chasing that next divine orb? In one word, depth. And not the philosophical kind. We're talking the kind of depth where you fall into a bottomless pit of passive trees, ascendancy choices, and skill gem synergies, and never see sunlight again. No other ARPG lets you make a build that literally explodes, teleports, summons undead, and deletes your frame rate all at once. Want to make a build that only functions while you're on fire, cursed, and poisoned? Go for it. That's not a bug, it's a feature. And when you finally land on that one perfect meme build, the dopamine hit is stronger than your 6th cup of energy drink during league start. This game gives the kind of satisfaction that even real-life accomplishments can't compete with. Promotions, relationships, nothing beats mapping with a cast on Death Detonate Dead build that only works when you die. Peak gaming. Let's not forget, GGG has been building this Frankenstein monster of an ARPG for over a decade. 10 acts, a sprawling atlas with more bosses than your daily stand-up meeting, and enough league mechanics duct-taped into the core game to make a new player cry blood. You can spend 100 hours in Path of Exile and still have no idea what betrayal, harvest, or bestiary even do, which to be fair is probably why so many newbies bounce off the game like it's a trial of labyrinth with no movement skills. Still, if you do manage to claw your way past the skill wall and wiki tab hell, you'll find yourself lost in a sandbox full of ways to self-torture. Entertain yourself. Want to gamble away your currency like a Vegas addict at Gwennon's slot machine? Done. Want to delve into an infinite mine and die to darkness because you forgot flares again? Sure. Want to steal from NPCs in Heist and get clapped by 400 guards for a chromatic orb? Hell yes. And here's the kicker. It's free. As long as you don't mind inventory Tetris and having your hideout look like a storage closet, you can grind thousands of hours without paying a cent. And then, one day, after realizing you've looted 27 kinds of currency but can't trade without premium tabs, you hand over your wallet like a beaten dog. Just one tab. Maybe a pet too. This open-door policy means there's always fresh blood to fuel the grind, especially when Diablo 4 players rage quit their seasonal battle pass grind and come looking for real ARPG content, only to get obliterated by a white mob named Inflamed Flame of Flame. with 6 arch-nemesis mods, and as much as we clown on grinding gear games for some of their decisions, 3.15, loot nerfs, passive tree RNG crafting, we gotta admit, they do listen, eventually. Usually after the community collectively loses its mind, and Chris Wilson drops an 8-page philosophical essay on Reddit like he's defending a thesis. But hey, at least they admit when they messed up, and then they fix it in a patch. Or 3. This cycle of suffering and salvation is what keeps us coming back. One league might be pure garbage, but then the next might drop a banger mechanic, and everyone suddenly acting like GGG never hurt them. It's the ultimate toxic relationship. They've changed this time, I swear. The crafting rework is going to be different, because let's face it, the ARPG genre isn't exactly bursting with contenders. Diablo 4 is that pretty but shallow Tinder date who ghosted you after 2 seasons. Last Epoch is the new kid still figuring out how to walk without desyncing. But Path of Exile? It's that one ex you can't stop texting at 3 a.m. because no one else does it quite like they do. Complex, brutal, occasionally broken, but oh so rewarding when it hits. We mock, we meme, we rage on forums, but under all that sarcasm is a core of respect. Because when, not if, Path of Exile gets it right, there's nothing like it. And that's why we keep logging in, season after season, wallet in hand and hope in heart. GGG, we flame you because we love you. Now hurry up and fix the loot again. So, is Path of Exile 2 in decline? Absolutely. But don't worry, it's the kind of slow-motion train wreck only a hardcore ARPG fan could watch while lovingly crafting their 40-second min-maxed build. The signs are everywhere. Player numbers sliding down the Steam charts like a cursed exile on a greased slope. League engagement limping along like it's stuck in permafreeze. And the community looking like it just found out its loot filter got nerfed. The forums? A delightful cocktail of constructive criticism, passive-aggressive memes, and the occasional cry for help disguised as a build guide. Reddit? Full of snark, schadenfreude, and copium-laced loyalty. You know a game's in a weird place when the top-voted thread says, "Grinding gear games? Are you still alive?" And no one's sure if it's sarcasm or a genuine welfare check. And yet, somehow, the game's still standing. Because Path of Exile isn't just a game. It's a lifestyle. A terrifyingly complex, stamina-draining, love-hate relationship of a lifestyle. One where you need a degree in quantum math to understand the passive tree and an iron will to survive your 5th death to random off-screen nonsense. But let's be real. Nobody does ARPG crack like GGG when they're actually on their game. Yes, GGG has fumbled some patches, gone full monk mode on communication, and turned League pacing into a form of psychological warfare. But these are the same folks who gave us 10 acts, hundreds of maps, and skill gems that can cause 3 nuclear reactions with a single button press. They can fix this. The real question is, will they? Or will they just add another type of currency and call it a day? Meanwhile, their competition isn't sitting idle. Diablo 4 came in with the swagger of a rock star, only to faceplant harder than a hardcore build forgetting to cap resists. And Last Epoch somehow became the indie underdog that accidentally started stealing everybody's lunch money, mostly by not treating QOL features like ancient relics. But don't count Path of Exile 2 out just yet. This game is like that grizzled old barbarian who's been through 14 leagues, 3 reworks, and still thinks fun is grinding for a mirror. Beat up? Sure. Confused? Definitely. Still dangerous? Hell yes. So here we are. The exiles are tired. The stash tabs are full. The forums are ablaze. And grinding gear games, somewhere in New Zealand probably plotting something ridiculous. But all it takes is one good league, one banger mechanic, and maybe, just maybe, acknowledging the community without waiting for another Beck's reincarnation. And this aging warhorse might just gallop its way back to the ARPG throne. Until then, we wait. We meme, we roast, we log out, but never uninstall. Because let's be honest, exile life is terminal, and we're all infected.